Hello and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today Magazine at recoverytodaymagazine.com, where first and foremost, we are a magazine of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself or for a loved one, maybe you're actively in recovery right now, a short time or maybe many, many years, you're going to find all kinds of topics related to addiction recovery, mental health, and really just living a happy, successful, and sober life here at Recovery Today. My name is Rob Hanley, and I'm the executive producer, chief editor at Recovery Today, and I am joined again, of course, by a great guest, one that I was naturally really excited, as always, to get in an interview with. But this one's a little bit different because this guy that I'm talking to today is actually a friend of mine. I'd like you to meet Cord, or Robert Beatty. His name is Robert, but he goes by Cord Beatty, and he's the founder of the Retreat at Zion Residential Inpatient Center. It's located in Rockville, Utah, and we're going to get into a little bit about what's different about it, because it's pretty different in terms of what it does and what it is. But before we do that, I kind of want to get into, it's definitely not your average everyday treatment center, I'll say, but I wanted to first kind of set the groundwork a little bit in introducing, sharing, bringing out Cord with you, and learning a little bit about him, because the series of events that kind of came together, the ups and the downs, highs and lows, a whole bit of this is, I think he'd probably tell you, is quite miraculous. We featured a story of Cord's in June 2018. We featured his girlfriend, KT Hart, actually in July of 2019, just a few issues back. And this guy is a mind blower. He's going to blow your mind away. So, Cord, thanks for taking a minute and jumping on today, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, man.
All right, so I got to jump right out with the very first thing. That, I mean, there's so many things that I think are extraordinary, but then just from like a statistic, who does it, the eliteness of this, because I aspire and like these kind of things in terms of compared to what, is you are in a very elite class. The article that we wrote, or that you, the article that you wrote, I should say, that was in June 2018, was titled "Climbing for Sobriety Shows Anything is Possible in Recovery." And the reason for that article, to kind of cut right to it, is you are not someone that has climbed Mount Everest. And I say that purposely because, first of all, I don't know anybody that's even attempted to climb Mount Everest, or it's very rare. You're not somebody that climbed Mount Everest. You're actually not even somebody that summited to Mount Everest, which is an even far more exclusive group. But you're someone that actually summited Mount Everest twice. So I'm just blown away by that. So I wanted to kind of lay the groundwork. We're talking to somebody in a pretty elite club right now. So to make sure I got that right, and maybe let's just jump off kind of in the interview there and start from there. I know you're like, oh, I've done a lot of other things. That's just one piece, but it's a really awesome piece. So let's start there if you don't mind.
Well, there's a project. The project is a feature of the Climbing for Sobriety project, and that's kind of an ongoing, evolving thing that started back in the 2012-2013 era. Like you said, of showing how people anything's possible in recovery, you know, and how does a guy go from being a multimillionaire by today's standards to losing everything and ending up homeless on the streets of Salt Lake for 2 solid years, some of which time I lived in a tent down by the river. I used to laugh that I was living in a van or a tent down by the river. You know, that old skit.
Right.
Digging out of that, and I think that it starts with the story started with a geographical change. It actually started with a spiritual awakening that took place in 2010. And that spiritual awakening was one of miraculous discovery, self-discovery for me. It's one thing to turn your life and your will over to the care of a higher power, if you will, but it's another thing to actually live it and do it. And the 25 years that I spent in my addiction had taken me to a place where I lost everything, family, my business, and I was a well-known and successful film producer. I had a career in film and television, that a lot of shows that most people know, and I end up dead broke and homeless and addicted to drug and alcohol, and no way out. And every single drug addict, and every single person that suffers from drug addiction and alcoholism, to me, we're climbing mountains every day. That's where the thought came from. That every day we're digging out and we're climbing a mountain, and one person's crisis may be another person's molehill. I don't know. Everybody has crosses to bear, as they say, right?
Yep.
To me, what separates me and the other person that has the same cross to bear is how big the cross is and how far up the hill I've got to pack it. And that's really what it comes down to. You know, I'm a veteran of the armed services, and I had some drive to me, even in the lowest parts of my life. And
which armed service were you in? What service? What branch of the service were you in?
I was in the Marine Corps, and so I.
What did you do in the Marine Corps?
I was a liaison officer, and
okay.
Originally went in to be a pilot, and became a licensed pilot, and became a pilot, and flew, and what I ended up being mostly as a liaison officer, and ending up in a place where it became boredom for me. And in those days, I didn't suffer from addiction. I didn't take my first drink until I was 35 years old.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I never drank alcohol, never had drugs or alcohol in my system until I was 35 years old. And what happened to this guy is that when I had my first drink, it had a hold of me, and it was the downfall of my entire life and my career. So what I knew in my miraculous discovery of this spiritual awakening that I talk of, everybody's bottom. In fact, when I have a book coming out called "How Free Do You Want to Be?" And
nice title. I like that title.
Yeah. In the book, you'll read about the discovery of what's called, everybody says, oh, he hasn't found the bottom yet, right?
Yeah, they say that, yeah.
And the discovery of that bottom is really, what does it take to fully concede to our innermost self that we don't have any power? So we're not really powerless over alcohol, as they say. We're powerless because we lack higher power and we lack God in our life. If that's all power, which I believe it is, and I don't have it, then I'm powerless. And so I realized that, and seeking that spiritual awakening came from a place at death's door when I was told by a medical doctor that I would not live the day from my liver failure and esophagealitis and liver failure. I had a heart attack and lay in a hospital bed.
How old were you about this time? So you actually didn't drink or do any drugs until 35, and now
35, and so this was 10 years ago. This is my 10th year of sobriety, and
okay.
And so this was a 10 years ago this year, and I had that miraculous self-discovery of spiritual awakening when I finally hit that bottom and said, help me, please. And for the first time in my life, right? Even though, the Marine Corps says there's no atheist in a foxhole.
Right.
I hadn't figured that one out yet. So one of the things I knew, Rob, is I was going to do it geographical. That I was going to go someplace where I could heal, and that I could be alone. I didn't want people around me. I went to my mother's house first. She's a registered nurse, and she spent an inordinate amount of time nursing me back to health. I knew that my life had been spared. And then the next thing I did is I set my sights on a destination on the face of this earth that was as far away from anything and anybody as I could get, where I could be alone to find and discover myself. And I chose Nepal. Don't ask me why, but that's what I chose.
What was the demon that was plaguing you at that time? Because the picture that I have is kind of Americana. I don't know if that was Salt Lake that you grew up in or it was around there, but obviously you've got a mom. It's not like you're, that's a nurse. So you hadn't started drinking or doing anything until you're 35. What was the thing that was kind of haunting you that it was like, I need to just like break out, or I need to, find myself? What was the main, like, you're struggling with type of thing?
Well, I think I had some traumas, as a younger man, and I won't get into that, but I had some severe traumas. But I also think that the main thing is that I lacked the ability in my life, even though I was raised in a Mormon household.
Okay.
I did not have a connection with any form of what one would consider higher power or God or anything. I was as far away from that as any person could be. And I always have been my entire life, up until 10 years ago. And so I think that the running away to find myself was really trying to seek out something that I already had within me, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't get any closer to it than I am now, but I didn't know that. So I ran there and
Nepal. And how did you choose Nepal? Were you thinking, I'm going to climb Mt Everest?
Oh, no. No, I went there because I heard about monks who pray in monasteries.
Oh, okay. Now it makes sense. All right, I got it.
And I was going to go learn how to pray. And I had a one-way ticket and $200 in my pocket, and ended up in Kathmandu. And the Jory Trail in Kathmandu is 125 miles to Lukla. And made my way to Lukla and then on into the Himalayas from there. But the journey was to find a spirituality. That's where I thought that I had to go someplace to find spirituality, right?
It's cool. That sounds like a pretty cool place to go, though, actually.
Yeah. Hey, it was a miraculous time in my life. It was a miraculous time. And I met a senior lama in a monastery who said some very wise words to me when I was praying in his monastery, and he asked me what I was experiencing, and I said nothing. And he said some wise words to me.
What did he say?
He said he tapped me on the forehead. He said, "Shut up." And I said, I can shut up. I can shut up. And I said, no. Shut up here. If you're praying, why aren't you listening? And I went, really? And he goes, yeah, communication is a two-way street, he said. You're trying to communicate to something that you need to talk back to you, and you're unwilling to listen.
So by the way, let's jump off real quick here, because I know that you wrote a book recently. It's not the one that you mentioned, that you wrote another book about spirituality. Obviously a real central part overall to recovery. I think, I have one thing I was impressed with is in our interview with Russell Brand, he said that he thought it was it was a spiritual disease. So it doesn't really matter. We don't need to label or anything like that. Everybody's got their own thing, and we don't prejudge or anything. But I'm kind of curious in terms of maybe even for my own personal thing, for talking to somebody that's gone to monks in Nepal. Like, I kind of think, like, when I pray, like, why can't God just talk to me audibly? Because honestly, I don't want to talk. I don't want to hear myself talk or anything like that. But the thing is, man, is I don't think I hear enough. So how do you do that?
Well, the process is the same process that I teach here. My students, what makes me different in my treatment center is that I teach my students how to do this the way that I learned it.
Okay.
And, we have, many of us have read, we have in our lives 4 standards that we deal with: resentment, fears. We deal with dishonesties and selfishness, right? The opposites of all of those are unselfishness, purity, love, honesty instead of dishonesty. And if you were to pray and ask God or a higher power for a specific answer to a problem that you were having, and that was the extent of your prayer, I'm seeking the answer to this, this is what I learned in Nepal. And I was to take a piece of paper and spend the amount of time listening in meditation for the answer to my question, what I would receive, because it's the only answers that I can receive from that source. is an answer to my problem, it would be loving, it would be honest, it would be unselfish, and it would be pure, because it can't be anything else. Right?
I agree.
If I were to write that down, that's, to me, that's God talking directly to me. And I get a set of instructions, you know. Our will, if you look up the word will, is nothing more than a set of instructions. Is it not?
So first of all, real quick, before we go too far past, so the whole secret then when you're praying or whatever it is that you're going to get an answer back to whatever the problem is or the thing that you're bringing. And then you would keep a pad and paper and then listen and then just write down intuitively what it is? I mean, what is that the kind of the little bit of the formula?
A little bit of the formula. I do it every day of my life. Written prayer and meditation. Just like I would take notes in a meeting. I ask God for the answers to questions that I need, what He wants me to do today, and I listen and I write those down. He's not going to tell me to go drink alcohol and drugs, I can tell you that.
Probably not. Yeah, that wouldn't be too cool.
Yeah. If I'm having a problem with Rob Handley, I can guarantee you that the answer that I receive is going to be one of loving, pure, honest,
right,
and unselfish manner.
Right. All right, so anyway, I took you off a little bit. I had to ask you some of the spiritual, deeper kind of stuff I like. So you're in Nepal, you're learning how to do this, and then what? Take me through, from then where?
Well, that's what led to climbing, and then the old film days. My days of filming came into play, and I called some guys, and we started putting together a documentary called Climbing for Sobriety, and that documentary is ongoing. That led to some summiting of Everest. It's summits of some. I've summited some of the other peaks in Nepal. I'm going back there this spring to summit Parashay East, and taking people in recovery with me on a trip like that.
Wow.
Documenting.
I would go, honestly, I would go on that. I would say, I want to go to that. I only have one problem though. I really don't want to die.
Yeah. You don't like the cold?
I just kind of got a thing, like I think maybe my wife might, some kids might like me to be alive. Maybe not, but no, I shouldn't say that. But yeah, that sounds good. That sounds awesome. Are you taking people from the retreat then? People that are alumni, friends?
Yeah. Some of my alumni will go back with me this spring, and we're going to finish that project.
Wow.
And, we want to finish the project, and we want to get that out. And my thought was we would sell the documentary. I'll take it to Cannes Film Festival, sell the documentary, and use the proceeds to fund people's treatment that can't afford it. And I do all that work, right? It's the same reason I wrote the book. The book is a nonprofit purpose. I mean, every dollar will go right back into funding treatment for those that can't afford it, whether they come here or somewhere else. They'll apply for scholarship through my foundation. Yeah. Will help.
Yeah, like it. So, all right, so you're in Nepal. So, I don't want to belabor Mount Everest, but I just think that it's so remarkable. So, had you already climbed a lot of mountains before? And I'm guessing that you went from I'm in Nepal, and then while you were still there, was that when you had the idea to put together this documentary? Tell me a little bit.
The documentary piece came out of the efforts while I was there, and finding some people that a couple of individuals that were guides, and working with them and talking to them about this process, and staying there as long as I stayed. The first trip, I actually have been over there several times, multiple trips, and but yeah, I mean it all evolved out of that, and then it just has been an ongoing process, and I've kind of wrapped back around. I actually tabled the project for a few years, and then we'll finish it this spring. It'll be finished and be out. And I have amazing footage and amazing scenery that was taken, and but that led me back to here. I didn't know I was going to start a treatment center.
Yeah. So how did that? Yeah. How did that happen? Why did you do that?
Well, I came back here and I got back here. I got back down here on the ground in 2012, and I was back over with my parents and my when they were alive. My parents are both deceased now, but when they were alive, I moved back in with them, and had made a decision that what I was going to do if I was going to stay sober, I was going to work in recovery, and enrolled in, had high enough grades that I enrolled and was accepted to Purdue University, and decided I would get my master's degree in psychology and addiction at Purdue University. And I went, and I had given my hopes and dreams of being a film producer up again, because that was a drinking world for me, so I decided I wasn't going back to that, and decided I was going to be a counselor. I would become a counselor and a therapist, and I just thought that I would work for somebody else. Again, leaving all of that up to my higher power and asking for the daily set of instructions on what to do. In 2013, I came back here, and I was milling around doing the same thing, asking what I'm supposed to do, where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do. And I got a toothache that I couldn't put it off any longer. One of my wisdom teeth was inflamed. Went to see a dentist in St. George, Utah, and he was interested enough in my story that he brought me out to his ranch, which is this beautiful ranch that you see here on my website. And in essence, he gave me this property for the treatment of others. And it's not mine. It does not belong to me. It belongs to the treatment of others. And he handed me the keys to this beautiful ranch. And away I went.
You had a toothache. You went to the doctor for a terrible toothache, and you're looking for a place to actually be a therapist or a clinical whatever, and the guy ends up giving you a ranch.
Well, I helped his daughter. He had a daughter who was addicted, and I spent 6 weeks helping her, and she's been sober now for about 8 years. And he was, I took her through the same process that I went through, the same process that I teach here, which is I teach an accelerated program in all 12 steps here.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, I guess I don't want to skip over. I know there's a lot of things that happened in order for, somebody giving you the property and the keys and the building.
Oh yeah, I know, but it was actually quite simple. It was that this was my calling. This is what I needed to do. And he just said, I'm in this with you, and I believe in that, and so this is what we're going to do.
There's good people out there, aren't there?
Oh yeah. He's just the most amazing man, and he just handed me the keys to the kingdom.
I think in a world where we're bombarded so much media-wise, probably because of clickbait and it's what sells and things like that about how bad things are, and personally, I have a hard time watching the news. I just look at sports because I like to look at something. So, but I think we're bombarded a lot by how bad things are, and movies nowadays aren't about a utopian future; they're about a dystopian future. Things are bleak and dark and all these kind of things like that. But I think the truth is, actually, there's some really good people that are out there. Some really extraordinary, generous, do-good type of people, man.
Yeah, there really is, and
maybe part of it is to be one too,
Yeah, I think you have to be one too. You have to genuinely care about people and their well-being. The people that come into my program, I tell them when they walk through that door, you are no longer a drug addict or an alcoholic. You are a student in recovery as long as you're here.
I love that.
You have to be educated, and you have to understand what it is that you're fighting, and then you have to understand how to beat it. And I'm one guy that firmly believes, and I will never believe anything else, that addiction is curable. And it's curable through a spiritual awakening, and it happens. I've seen it happen 200 times in this facility, and it is curable. And so, I've had a lot of people argue with me about that, but I'm not here to debate that with anybody. It's my opinion.
Let's define that a little bit then. So we're talking about like a curable. What do you think? Well, first of all, what are your thoughts on the whole description that it's a disease? I mean, I know that, again, not to get hung up with labels, but I'm kind of curious.
Oh, yeah. I firmly believe that alcoholism and addiction is a disease it's a genetic disease. That's been proven. The AMA is very clear on that. I mean, and I firmly believe that. Mm-hmm. But just like cancer, diabetes, anything else, I believe that it's curable.
Is it curable, or is it like in remission, maybe, then, if I'm going to use a cancer type of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I think it would depend on how you look at it. Me personally, I believe that my addiction has been cured. It's been taken from me.
Yeah. And is that because I'm assuming part of that it's because there's a transformation.
Totally, yeah.
You're not the same person as you were before.
Yeah. I do believe that if I went back to it, I would.
Right. But there wouldn't be a reason to, because you're not the same person that you were before? Or I'm just thinking this through. You're not saying that, obviously. That's what
I'm not the same person. And my life, my thinking has changed. And I think that, drinking and using is a thinking problem. And it's the genetic disease of that causes the thinking problem. And spiritual awakening changes the way that we think. And if you can change the way that you think, and that's the problem. If our problem is only the way that we think, it's fixable.
Is there a general loop or a common denominator that you find a lot then in terms of people getting stuck? Like, our brain is a computer and it's running a program, or our brain is to date myself a little bit, as a tape recorder. Younger people say, "What's that?" But it's running a tape, or a CD player, and it's running. Is there a general theme or loop, or is it boiled down to self-esteem? What do you typically find then in terms of like changing that?
Changing who you are?
Yeah, or like what you're thinking. Like, what's the thinking that I'm this, I'm that, I'm not enough, or something?
Well, your thinking really comes down to the compulsiveness of your behavior, right? Mm-hmm. My thinking, at least for this alcoholic, I can tell you that my thinking was my biggest problem. The craving, or the phenomenon of craving when I put alcohol in this body, is there and it's real, but that's not my problem. My problem is my compulsive thinking and my compulsive behavior. And if I can't change that, I can't beat addiction. So the process of spirituality, spiritual awakening, the process of gaining spiritual awakening through a spiritual process is one that allows you to change that issue. Compulsion will be removed from you if you do the work. Compulsive behavior. Most addicts, alcoholics deal with a very compulsive behavior. They drive their cars into liquor stores when they should be going to a meeting, right? And that's what we do. And I think having a higher power remove that from you is very possible through that spiritual connection.
So walk me through a little bit about your program and how that happens. And I want to really come back and pick up on the word that you used, accelerated. There's a lot of different places that are out there. Again, we, as long as somebody stays sober a day longer, 2 days longer, whether it's forever, we want that. But what are some of the things that you identify that kind of are a little bit different? I know that you're located in a slice of heaven there. Right at Zion National Park. Yeah. So you can see from the painting behind you. But what's different? How is it accelerate? Talk to me a little bit about what you guys do.
Well, we don't do a lot of group therapies like most treatment centers that you would envision. In fact, we do very little group therapy. We do more individual therapies for underlying traumas, PTSD, things like that. But most of the crux of the business here, the crux of our program here, is to spend all of our time accelerating at a self-paced level, but quickly the 12 steps. The 12-step program, the spiritual 12-step program, has 12 specific promises attached to it. You do this, you get that, right? Yeah. And so if that's correct, then you get somebody to that place in step one of believing that this is happening. I've just had a step one experience. I know that I'm powerless. I don't have any way of beating this. And this guy standing there is telling me that for the next 11 steps, I'm going to show you how to get that. for me, this alcoholic, when I understood that from the individual that taught me this program, I understood one thing and one thing only, and that was that I needed to get to that power very, very quickly. I didn't need to be working on a 4-step after I left treatment. I didn't need to be working on my 5th and 6th and 7th step. I needed to do that now because that's where I would find real power, right? And so when we say accelerated, we work on steps 1 through 4 very, very quickly. We try to get somebody from, we spend an inordinate amount on step 1 because you have to have a foundation. Then we work steps 2, 3, and 4 in unison, and we get to those character defects and the things that we're working on. When we get those out of the way, moving on to steps 5, 6, and 7, talking with us as counselors, discussing that with higher power, doing all those things. And then we spend all of our time, we do this, we try to get this done in the first 10 days of treatment of a 30-day program.
Wow.
And we spend all of our time, all 20 days left, if we can get there, learning how to connect through prayer and meditation with that higher power on a daily basis, and how that happens and why it happens and how to do it correctly so that you can live a life free from addiction.
And this is about, this is not about like any particular faith or religion. This is what you said, is your higher power. It's not about,
my own son, Trent, who's he's here in this treatment center with me, and he finally has come into treatment because of the suffering he's done with his own alcoholism and his depression. And he is just excelling in leaps and bounds. That 20-day window that we're spending with these advanced students that are learning how to do this, they're doing with me, but we're not doing it here in a group setting. We're doing it out there in God's country where it's beautiful and nature is there, and the scenery of Zion National Park is there. And we climb Angel's Landing, and we'll do a prayer meditation. We'll do a written prayer meditation group at the top of Angel's Landing in Zion, 3,500 feet on the top of a cliff. And we'll go to the Grand Canyon, down to the remote areas of Torrelweep, and stand at the top of a 4,000-foot drop, and we'll sit there and do a written prayer meditation group. That's what we do. Everybody has a spiritual awakening. You can't help but have a spiritual awakening when that happens. And so, we do rock climbing because I'm a big climber. I get people doing things that they're not comfortable with. We go to the big slot canyons of Zion National Park. We put wetsuits on. We get in the canyon. It's uncomfortable. It's cold, but it's the most intense and incredible thing you can do. And halfway through that canyon, when everybody's tired and worn out and wet and cold, what do? Get our dry bags out. We get our big books out, and we have a written prayer meditation right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty different.
Yeah. And people have the stories that I could tell you, that the guys that have been through the stories they could tell you about their spiritual awakening here are miraculous. And
so let me go through this a little bit to kind of highlight and summarize a little bit. Is that a regular 12-step type of a program? I shouldn't say regular, but a 12-step as opposed to a non-12-step approach, right?
Yeah.
Spiritual base with whatever you conceive your higher power overall to be, that's just not you. And that you're going to do it in this pristine area. But the main thing I'd get to is that I know that people a lot of times will say, "Oh, I'm on this," for years. They'll say, I'm working on the 10th or 11th step, type of thing. And you're taking everybody through to all 12 steps in 10 days. Is that what you said?
No, in 30 days. But
okay.
The first 4 are done within those first 10 days. We have done steps 1 through 4. The reason that they need to get through this while they're here is that, like I was touching on, these 12 steps have 12 specific promises attached to them. And if all 12 of them are needed for long-term recovery, why would I send them out of here unless they've done them all? Right? It doesn't make any sense.
How did you conceive of this? Because I know of other places that are, they do outdoor activities. A lot of places do equine. That's how we, obviously I met, Katie, that You know, she talks to animals and horses and all the other kind of things like that. She's awesome. Through you, some people do water skiing. They do all kinds of different things, hiking and stuff. But this is a little different. How did you conceive of the kind of the cornerstone of the foundation of creating an accelerator program like that? Like,
Well,
where did this come from?
it's what I was going to do as a therapist. October 10th of 2010, I met an individual who understood everything that I'm telling you. And he understood just how sick I was. And he took me through the steps very, very quickly. He understood that I needed that power. He told me if all 12 of these steps are needed to have a psychic change, a change in the way that you think, and now that we've identified that this is your problem, the promises that are found within here will cause that psychic change. You need to go through these steps very, very quickly. You don't need to be working on your 4th step for 3 years like you hear in those meetings. I want you to put that aside for a minute and open up your mind and your heart and have an open mind and an open heart about a process that should happen very, very quickly. And he said, the other thing that I need you to keep in mind as we start here is that typically back in the 30s and 40s, those guys that founded this program typically took somebody through the 12 steps over a cup of coffee prior to taking them to a meeting. They introduced me to this, all 12. And I said, it doesn't sound possible. And he took me through the 12 steps in 3 days. And I've never drank again. And I've never used a drug again. I needed what he had. And I knew that that was the answer, that I would sponsor men, moving past that day, that I would end up sponsoring men, becoming a counselor. I knew that that was my calling. I didn't know I was going to try to start a treatment center. But
it's co-ed. Your place is co-ed, though. It's not just men. It's co-ed, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I actually knew that I would do this work for the rest of my life, and I knew that I didn't need to fix something that wasn't broke. You know, in the front of that book of ours that has the 12 steps in it, it says very loud and clear, this is a story of how thousands and thousands of men and women have recovered, aka cured. It doesn't say that they're living in their 4th step. It doesn't say that they're continuing to work on this. It says they've recovered.
Yeah.
And they use the word cure 8 times in that book. So why am I to question something that's not broke? I just need to do the same process. So what I do is exactly what they did in 1942. It's the exact same program. Nothing different. And I do it very quickly. These people need the power that's found within those promises, and they need it right now. They don't need it after they leave here.
So what else do you guys have in your program there? Like how else does it go in terms of climbing, rock climbing, and stuff like that? Obviously, a lot of meditation.
Rock climbing. We do rock climbing. We do rappelling. We do adventure-based therapies. We've done river rafting. We do on the Colorado River. We do equine therapy. I have a theta chamber in this building. It's a $100,000 piece of equipment that connects left and right hemisphere of the brain, has movement to it. You see it on my website. You can see that. My students use it every day. Takes care of PTSD and allows the brain to process traumas, PTSD, sleep apnea problems, sleep problems. I mean, we do those modalities. We do a lot of individual therapies, getting to the basis, like say the underlying problems that are causing us to pick up the drink in the first place. So we dig in on those, and go. You know, we get people well and get them on their way.
What happens if do you find anybody that's actually fearful or apprehensive about something, mountain climbing or putting the wetsuit on or some kind of how do you deal with that kind of stuff? Because I would think there's a lot of fear overcoming. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. Every single person has fear about that. And it's working into it, trusting in the process, using the step work, you know, putting somebody on a rope when I'm the person that's on the other end of that and holding them so that they can't fall, and saying, trust in a higher power, something greater than you, and let go, you know. And
very cool.
You know, getting somebody on a 100-foot cliff to let go of their hands and trust in me to hold them there it's a big deal, you know.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So the whole time that we're talking here, of course, over your shoulder, I'm looking at and, seeing almost as if it was a window, it seems, to overall where you are with this painting. So can you tell me a little bit about that painting?
Oh yeah, this painting is, I'm a painter. I paint in my spare time, and I teach a painting class here for my students. We have a full art studio here, and this is a painting I finished. Took me about a year to finish this painting, if you can see that.
That is really cool.
Yeah. And,
really cool.
It's of this area, but we do a lot of art therapies. And
is that place there close to where you are, or is there rockscapes that look similar to that? I don't know.
That's Delicate Arch. It's actually that arch is actually 60 feet tall on the inside, 68 feet from the bottom to the top on the inside.
About 3 or 4 stories almost, huh?
Yeah, and it's very close. It's not too far from us, and we go over there. It's over by Moab. Not too far from us.
Your patients, your client, and your students, I probably should say, they come in and part of their therapy and quest and like that is they go to that place right there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Here, Bryce Canyon, Zion National Park, because we're here. I mean, Zion is literally in our backyard. I could show you.
Yeah, show me.
I'll show you. This is. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, oh, there's the pool.
Yep, see the cliffs out there?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That is Zion National Park.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we're just right here. I mean, we're within about 2 miles of the gate to get into Zion, and so we go over there. We're over there every day.
You got a nice backyard, man.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We've got an equine center out there, and
I guess it kind of makes it a little easier to stay like a peaceful guy or something like that when you're,
Oh, we've got 11 acres of gorgeous property out here and pastures and big cottonwood trees, and I've got a river running right down through the property back here behind us.
It sounds awesome. So it's Zion. For people that don't know, Zion National Park is what, South Utah? Is that what's it near?
Southern Utah. We're very close to St. George, Utah.
Okay, St. George. I know it's like a big retirement place. It's sunny there all the time, whatnot like that.
Beautiful and sunny, and we're about an hour and a half from the Grand Canyon, hour and a half from Bryce Canyon. We, the Colorado River is close to us. We're into that, and some of the best climbing, some of the best rock climbing and canyoneering is found right here in my backyard, and we take advantage of it. We have all the gear, all the wetsuits, everything. You got to come out and hang out with us.
The thing that was funny is we have a mutual friend that, or maybe an acquaintance, I should say. I use the word friend so loosely, although I really like the guy. And it was funny. He had no idea that, I put together the magazine. We do the magazine or anything like that at all. We just never had that. And it was from years back. And we connected, and nothing could keep him, sober until he went to your place.
Right.
So it was pretty cool that you get somehow or another, I don't know, my name came up or yours, something like that. And it's like, oh, my God, we know each other. So,
in fact, I just ran into him the other day and bought him lunch. I ran into him in a store, and every time I see him, man, he just embraces
radiates. Me. Yeah, he radiates.
Hangs on for me and hugs me and just said, man, I just love you. What you've done for me.
Yeah, I think that's, honestly, being a movie producer and whatnot and having a life like that, obviously it'd be pretty cool, first class and flying private jets and, I don't know, type of thing like that. But I look at, like, in terms of you get one shot, and I really, my hat is off to somebody that I feel is, like, more purposeful, meaningful, enlightened, perhaps. It's not to disparage anybody that's doing that. But I just like the whole commitment that you have and that you put together in terms of like helping and assisting other people and that it's a much deeper, more fulfilling for you. And I think so too, type of a life.
No doubt. I got to tell you, money does not buy happiness, and I've had it, and it does not buy happiness. Happiness is found within, no matter how much money you have or don't have.
Yeah,
And if you can't find that, if you're not connected spiritually with something, you are one miserable person. And
well, from a guy that has, you're pretty, is from you, I mean, somebody that's actually had a lot of money and been homeless on the streets for 2 years, who's summited, I should say, Mount Everest. Can't even say climbed, because not everybody that climbs it makes it. Summited Mount Everest twice, and, I don't say see the Dalai Lama, but something like that, like I'm thinking of Eddie Murphy's movie, The Golden Child, or something in Nepal, and chanting and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I take that, actually, those words with a lot more gravity in terms of what it's all about. So how can people get in touch with you? I mean, I love I wanted to tell the story of this accelerated place and kind of stuff like that. How do they get back to you? How can they connect and all that kind of stuff?
The best way is on my website. It's retreatatzion.com. Very simple.
Then the @ is AT, so just retreat, REATREAT, and then AT for @. And then Zion is ZION, right? Retreat at Zion.
Retreat at Zion. And all of my information is on there.
Okay, terrific. Well, it's funny. Featured a cool story from you. Then about a year later, a cool story from your amazing girlfriend, Katie, who does your equine therapy, and she's been a lion tamer and a tiger person, and I call her like Dr. Doolittle. Talks to the animals, and they talk back. Person, and featured hers, beautiful too. And but the more that we have connected, and the more that I hear these kind of things, you'd asked me to look at one of your books a little while ago. I just felt like, hey, we had to talk a little bit about, not only about you, but about, some of the different things that you're doing at your place too. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, you bet.
So thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Yep. And in this featured course we'll show, you can just click below or whatever. We'll put some pictures up and all the things like that. You can connect back with Cord. I encourage you to do it. He's a great, great guy. So thank you again. This has been another exclusive interview by Recovery Today Magazine at recoverytodaymagazine.com.